listening to Let's Talk Sustainable Business.
Hi, my name is Barbara Mendes-Jorge, and I'm a sustainability communications expert based in Brussels, Belgium. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this edition of Let's Talk Sustainable Business, a series brought to you by the Conference Board. This is the second instalment of our two-part conversation with Caroline Viarouge, CEO of EIT Manufacturing. So if you haven't listened to part one yet, please do go back into our catalogue to listen to that first. Welcome back to part two, Caroline.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you again.
Thanks for coming back. So in part one, we talked about EIT Manufacturing's mission, your view on the current industry trends, and how sustainability needs to be intertwined with manufacturing. It's the only option, is what you said. In part two, I'd like to discuss women in STEM, the role sustainable manufacturing can play in boosting European competitiveness, and the future of jobs in manufacturing. So, Caroline, in part one, we discussed the state of the European manufacturing industry, and I'd like to delve a little deeper by asking, how do you think sustainable manufacturing can both drive climate action and boost competitiveness? And what do you think are the most urgent actions that the industry needs to take to become more sustainable?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, if we think about the most urgent action that the industry need to take, clearly we need to start, first of all, by accelerating the transition to renewable and decarbonized energy. Here, it's not just good for the planet. It is also a strategy for the sovereignty of Europe. As we can no longer depend on the gas from Russia or the petrol coming from outside of Europe. This transition on renewable and decarbonized energy is becoming more than an environmental topic. It is a strategy for sovereignty. Then we need to think about focusing on efficiency to minimize waste and defect and optimize production and resources used to reduce material use and thus cost. I mentioned, I think, in the first part, the circular business model, and we need to explore that even further. Really addressing business models that tackle resources scarcity and dependence on raw material and component. And finally, here we need to think to collaborate more closely with the startups, with the research organization developing innovation solution. These ideas, they are out there. There is technology existing. There are some very bright and smart people who have developed strong technology, and they just need strong connection to the industry. And this is what we do at EIT Manufacturing, bridging this connection to make this innovation happen.
Thank you. I think the point you make about sovereignty or independence is very important. I was working in a project on energy independence, energy efficiency when the war in Ukraine started. And I remember seeing the arguments of, insulating your house is, will help isolate Russia, and that was the first time I saw such a political argument being taken on something that was seemingly very sustainable. So I think it's a very good point that you make.
Yeah.
So we've talked about manufacturing in general, but a topic that I was especially keen to zoom in on with you and talk about is women in manufacturing, or women in STEM. And for those who don't know, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So in August 2025, EIT Manufacturing published a report called Gender Mainstreaming Policy and Gender Equality Action Plan. And here are a few stats from the report. Women made up only 22.4% of scientists and engineers in the EU's manufacturing sector, compared to 45.6% in service-related industries. Women represent just 19% of top academic positions in engineering and technology across the EU, and this underrepresentation extends to innovation, where women account for only 9% of patent applications, a figure that has remained stagnant over the past decade. So, Caroline, what was the rationale for publishing this report, and how does it fit into your 4-year Gender Equality Action Plan?
Yeah, thank you for asking the question. It's such an important topic. And
Definitely.
In EIT Manufacturing, we adopted a gender mainstream policy because diversity and inclusion are essential to innovation and excellence. Something which is being reported again and again in different reports is the value diverse teams are adding. If we look at a diverse team with a capital D, they are 8 times more likely to be more innovative. Mm-hmm. So having a diverse team is not just showing some nice figures of equality and 50-50. It's about be more innovative, be more competitive, think beyond the normal the more normal path. In EIT manufacturing, we follow EIT overachieving approach as all the knowledge innovation community. And a goal is to ensure that gender balance and equal opportunity are mainstreamed across everything we do. So from the project we are selecting and the educational program over to leadership and community building, we want to make sure we have a balanced gender through all this program. The gender equality is not something that we do as a standalone initiative. This is things which is integrated and built into all the program to have a stronger and more innovative manufacturing in Europe.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's just common sense, isn't it? That if you, whether in manufacturing or other areas, if you have teams with lots of different backgrounds and experiences, of course, innovation is much more likely to happen than if you're all from the same background with the same experiences. It's just common sense to me, anyway. What are some of the main barriers preventing progress in gender equality, and where have you seen a positive evolution?
Yeah, okay, here I know we are all aware of some of the underlying issue the sector faces around gender bias, around stereotypes, the wage disparity, the lack of mentorship or role model. And okay, I will stop there. But there are definitely a lot of barrier. But these factors favor the creation of an environment where women face fewer opportunity. And that's a problem. So this opportunity we need to build for them to grow, to have a potential, and to remove any skepticism about their ability. So yes, we saw a significant rise, and we see a rise in women-led venture in a program and core. Only if we look at last year, in 2024, we supported over 60 women-led startup and scale-up. And a woman-led startup attracted over 25 million euro investment. So it's improving. We also have in the learning program, out of the 500 learners and graduates enrolled in the 2024 EIT label program, we had 48% of women. If we look at the non-degree education and training program, out of 7,000 participants, we had 33% who were women. So, yes, we see progress. We see the interest, and a lot of talent are coming our way. And we see a huge potential for growth here. As initiatives such as the Risk Leaders or Supernova, we're also leading Women Tech EU. They were created precisely with this purpose to truly break down the barrier that women still encounter in manufacturing.
Thank you. And if someone in industry, a policymaker, one of our listeners wants to advance gender inclusion in manufacturing, what insights would you offer that they could take?
Yeah, we need here to move from good intention to real action. And there are some structural support which is needed. And this is what we needed. This means truly ensuring that the women have access to funding for the entrepreneur. It's extremely important that all this entrepreneurship and the attraction of funding to women through some different program or through some mentoring of venture capital or investor as well, we unlock this bias and this barrier the woman entrepreneur facing today. More generally, in entrepreneurship, the mentoring and leadership of women and not as an exception, of one woman here and there. It should be something we build as systemic, as part of the way to develop a woman across the industry. We are not here empowering individual. We are rather strengthening the whole innovation ecosystem by bringing more women into these activities.
Great. Thank you very much. Going back to a topic that we touched upon in part one, I wanted to talk to you more about the skills and labor shortages. I talked about lagging investment in sustainable technologies could put European jobs at risk. But I also read an article from the European Environment Agency that employment in the EU's environmental goods and services sector grew at a faster rate than the overall employment rate in the last decade. So how do you see the sustainable manufacturing sector playing a role in boosting jobs, especially green jobs in Europe?
Yeah, so I mean, this trend you mentioned here will continue, and there is no doubt here. The employment, if we look at EU green economy, has grown substantially, and we see an increase when we look at the number of 2.7 million full-time employee from 2010 to 2022. And this increase is outpacing the overall employment growth in the EU. So there is a clear trend and a clear growing demand there. By 2022, this sector employed about 6.7 million people. 6.7 million people, to give you an idea, is 3.1% of the total EU employment. These people working on green economy. So, with the European policy working on the Clean Industrial Deal, the initiatives such as the Net Zero Industry Act, and the EU aiming to truly accelerate this green transition despite this geopolitical and different point of view, the ambition is still there. The ambition to become carbon neutral as a continent by 2050 is very much the objective we all push toward to. And this priority will act as a booster for jobs in the coming years, and will further increase the share of green employment in the European economy. If we think of manufacturing here, we expect a similar proportional increase. So at EIT Manufacturing, we have matchmaking initiatives supporting the uptake of purely green technology and sustainable manufacturing, and consequently, the job creation. As you integrate this technology into the different production line across Europe, we are creating job behind it, green job. And just recently, we host the second edition of Access to Tech event in Paris. This is an event we organize in collaboration with BPI, Le Hub, and where over 20 startups from different European countries, Portugal, Spain, France, Germany, Austria, Italy, they did present their solution to French industrial corporates like ArcelorMittal, like Nova Saint-Gobain or FIV. And in just give you this example on pushing this green technology through the corporate is a way to, first of all, get the acceptance of the technology, integration of the technology, and behind that, to also create jobs and bring some skills around the green economy.
Thank you, and thank you for those numbers as well. I really feel like this story should be more widely known. How fast? I don't think I knew that fact until reading that article, and I work in sustainability. So thank you for the specific numbers. So you talked about the shortage of green skills a little bit in part one. I wanted to ask, how much should policymakers and industry be focused on reskilling and education, therefore, if there is such an opportunity?
Yeah. I mean, we always say start with people. So people are the cornerstone for making this green and digital for a competitive transition to happen. Without a clear reskilling and educational plan, we may simply risk many workers to be left behind. Left behind because they they will no longer be having the adequate skills and competences that the job market is requesting. And this gap is in need, we want to avoid this to be a gap of competences. If we look at Europe again, solely the green transition, according to CDFOP's forecast to 2035, show that more than half of the EU job opening will be for skilled professional and technician as Europe decarbonize and digitalize. More than half of the EU job opening will be on this
That's an
specific.
interesting statistic. Yeah.
So from a talent education and reskilling and upskilling, this is essential for any strategy a company, a startup, an SME is putting together, and the policymaker should be helping toward this support on reskilling and upskilling. Because if we don't address this, nothing else will happen.
Great. Thank you. And to wrap up part two, I'd like to ask you, how have you seen the relationship between sustainability and manufacturing evolve throughout your career? And what are your hopes for the sector in future?
Yeah, well, I started my career in automotive industry. at Nissan.
Okay.
I would say a few decades ago. And sustainability as a word, it wasn't a buzzword as we know it today. But we need to think that it doesn't mean that it wasn't treated in many aspects. If you think of the employee safety on a production line, the well-being, already the waste reduction and the diversity started to come as a topic. So it was addressed more on, I would say, the people aspect, and it started to be also on the waste part of things. But the topic has definitely evolved in the last year to decarbonization, circular economy, and more as an integrated criteria in decision making. If we think about today, sustainability, we talk more about the green aspect, because from the societal aspect, we consider that in Europe, we already well progressed. And these green aspects are integrated in many companies in, for example, the procurement process. So when we are looking for a new supplier, this is becoming mandatory criteria which are rated. So we are looking for the suppliers which is respecting the environmental aspect more than others. So this integration and in the decision making is definitely a good progress. And my hope for the future is that we don't consider sustainability as a cost. I think we had that question in the first episode. It is not a cost or a regulatory burden. We need to go for sustainability. It is the go-to answer. This sustainability shift is bringing us a competitive advantage, truly making us more resilient as a continent, more competitive, and with high quality and standards, high precision product and services we offer in Europe, which do respect the people and the planet.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Caroline, for joining us today for part 2. And thanks to our listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe to this podcast series and explore the entire catalogue of podcast programming from the Conference Board by visiting our website at tcb.org/podcasts. See you next time.
That was Let's Talk Sustainable Business.